Welcome to the Porsche Club Insider, your one stop for all things Porsche and PCA. Here's your host, Vu Gwyn, and the Insider crew.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 91. I can't believe it. We are already in December. Where did the time go? We are here at PCA's National headquarters around the table. I have my cohorts, Manny Albin, Damon Lowney, Robert Forsyth on the controls. And joining us, Nathan Merz, our YouTube darling and PCA's valuation expert.
Good morning, fellow PCA enthusiasts.
How are you doing? Thank you for joining us.
I'm excellent.
So we've had a couple exciting things here as we lead into December. First and foremost is look at all the goodies we have, all the sugar. Where did all that stuff come from, Manny?
Let's see. One of our listeners, Hal Canetti, I hope I got the last name right. His family business is Spangler Candy Company, and he said, "I want to send you." I think I mentioned something that my kids like Necco wafers.
Yeah.
Because I say kids, my son's going to turn 30 next year. But he said, "I want to send you some to offer some candy." And lo and behold, he said 20 pounds of candy. And now yet this isn't even 20 pounds.
Yeah, what you
There's
see is
half a box
yeah.
on the floor. And wow, I mean, I'm dying to try this Hawaiian Punch. Evidently, his company said something like 50% of the candy canes used in America are made by his company.
Wow.
Yeah. It's
very cool.
You ever wonder where candy came? But there's just such a huge amount. Dum Dums.
Bit O Honey. I remember that from back in the day.
Yeah, it's
very cool. Sweethearts, candy sweethearts.
Which he told me is basically Necco wafers, just ground up and
shaped
if I
into
got it
hearts.
right. Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll figure out how to distribute. There's a lot of candy here.
I don't even know if the whole office can eat.
If you ever see any of this stuff like Jelly Belly candy canes, then you know you're buying it from a fellow
PCA
Porsche
member,
yeah.
Porsche enthusiast. Very cool. So I've got something for you guys, sort of a you didn't know that you needed. Can you tell me what this is? And hopefully Nathan can see too. Any idea what this is?
Quick way to get a inspection by the TSA.
So thank you to Jack Murphy making me realize it's a tool that I didn't know I needed. Check this out. So let's say you need to put a zip tie around something in your car. You just slide it in here and it gives you the perfect strength for, and then what's cool is when you click it, it cuts it flush and not sharp.
Okay, that makes it worth it then. At first I'm like, it just looks like more work to do the same thing. No, but then you cut it.
You cut it and
Yeah,
it's
there we
flush
go.
and it's not sharp. New tool.
I would have hired a salesman that sold this to Jack.
She must this.
She must have been really good looking. Because
Manny.
I'm going to say what everyone wants to know. Isn't it just the same, just to slide it and just take a pair of scissors and cut it?
No, because when you cut it with the scissors, typically you cut it at an angle and it creates a sharp edge. So if you do like a wire loom and you're doing a long distance of it, look, it doesn't cut you.
The tightening part's not worth it, but the cutting I can
part.
sort of see how that
So,
makes sense.
anyways, I think it was like $10. So now I have a new tool for my toolbox. All right, so what have you guys been up to since I've been away?
So I went to Cars and Coffee. Of course, last weekend for us was the weekend after Thanksgiving. Not when everyone's listening to it. I guess who I ran into. I was about to leave because I went to go watch my two sons run a half marathon. Tim Costa.
Oh.
Yeah. And I asked him to send me pictures of his Overlander. He took his Cayenne. Look what he built it into.
Oh, nice.
Diesel Cayenne. It's this really cool looking Overlander. I wish I could have stayed and looked at it more, but I said my goodbyes. I was walking to my car, and when he came up to me, so I told him we got to get together and have dinner to catch up. But yeah, pretty look. Plus, it's a diesel. More desirable Cayennes. I got to spend
cool to do a 1 mile review on that Overlander.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I got to spend a lot of time watching people running. So Nathan, you can appreciate this since you're usually the runner. My daughter ran a 5K on the morning of Thanksgiving, and her brothers ran along for moral support. It was the first time she was running a 5K, and first time she ran without stopping the whole way.
Nice.
So that was big accomplishment for her. And then my two sons, Derek and Cole, they ran a half marathon on what's called an NCR Trail, which is actually, it was only like 10 minutes from where the Cars and Coffee is.
I see a medal around his neck. Did he place?
I think all the finishers.
All the finishers?
I think having a chance to ask him if he placed in his age group or not.
But he usually places pretty high.
Yeah, Derek does. He did 133, I think, and I think Cole did 155.
Nice.
Which is both very respectful times for a half marathon.
And you didn't think about maybe joining them for a couple of feet?
I joined them about 10 feet before the finish.
Nice.
I actually had to walk about a mile downhill. Well, the whole time I'm saying I'm going to have to go uphill again back to my car. But so that was pretty much my my weekend.
Cool. And how,
Nice.
Damon, you've been on the road. I haven't seen you.
I went to San Diego for Thanksgiving. The plan earlier was I would be out there for work, but work didn't take me out there this year, so I decided to head out there on my own, and we're with my girlfriend and her daughter as well. And we stayed with my uncle and aunt, and they're the two Porsche people in our family. And my uncle is actually an Aston Martin person as well. So if you're watching on YouTube, what you're looking at is a 2014 V8 Vantage and a 2007 911 GT3. And he's had both cars, the GT3 for a bit longer, and now he's had the Aston Martin for a year and a half, 2 years. I saw it for the first time last year. And I drove it for the first time this year and decided to have a little bit of fun and take the camera along and see what happens. So we're still deciding what we're going to do with this video or if it's going to be published. But basically, I'm hoping it is. What a great pair of cars. And I know this is a Porsche podcast, but if you remember, the Aston Martin came out, the V8 Vantage, originally in the U.S. in 2007, and it didn't change much through 2014. I'm sure there are some small things here and there, but for two cars being from basically the same generation, coming out at around the same time, the Aston Martin can basically keep up with the GT3. If you're driving, 7/8 tenths, it feels great, and I was kind of surprised because it's almost, I think it's 500 pounds heavier.
So would you say the GT3 is more of a tracksuit, and
so I would
the
say
other car is more of a
the Aston Martin
tuxedo?
was in some senses, yeah. The Aston Martin was surprisingly easy to get in and just drive really fast. But if you hop from the Aston Martin into the GT3, you immediately know, whoa, like this thing's on edge. And I would say the Aston Martin's kind of like the quick hit, whereas the GT3, it's gonna take a little bit longer to get used to driving it, but then you have so much more room to grow into. But yeah, really impressed with both cars. So
I don't know the Aston market very much. When they were new, were they around the same price? And
Yep. Actually, the Aston Martin, when they were new, were slightly more. So I believe the GT3 from 2007 was 105-ish, $105,000, and the Aston Martin was in the $115,000 range.
And what about in today's
now
market?
it's flipped. So in a 2014 Aston like that one, not even an older 07 model, can be had for in the $70,000 to $80,000 range.
Oh, wow.
And then a GT3, just looking at the market and really bring a trailer sales in the past year or two, in the $120,000 to $150,000 range. So it's gone up to more than MSRP.
That's a 997.1, right?
Yes, a 0.1.
Yeah.
And it's the question is, if is it worth it? And I think if you're looking for the performance, not to give away the video, but in a nutshell, it's definitely worth it. You know what you're paying for with the GT3.
But I gotta say though, if you're like a value shopper, I gotta think that the Aston Martin's quite
the
a
Aston
deal.
Martin is like if you already have a GT3 almost. Like if I didn't have my Cayman, or a Porsche, I probably wouldn't buy the Aston first. It would be sort of just like my uncle did, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, it's a beautiful car.
But yeah, two amazing cars.
And Nathan, I know you were pretty proud to have brought your family together over the holidays.
Yeah, I was super thrilled. I got all four of my kids in town for the holiday, which is quite an achievement because three of the four live out of town, and my son's in the Bay Area. I have a daughter in Montana, and then my youngest daughter was in Hawaii. And I have to confess, Vu, you and I share this frugal nature. So I had priced out airfare. I was being responsible 6 weeks out, and it was almost $1,600 to fly her home. Wow. And she's an athlete, so she had a very short break. She had to be there through Wednesday and had to be back on Monday. And I thought, well, gosh, $1,600 for 3 days, and it's a 6-hour flight each way. Probably not worth it. And so I called her on Wednesday afternoon, and she looked so sad. She just looked brokenhearted. And it melted my poor heart. I thought, oh, dang it, I'm going to have to buck up and pay last-minute tickets. So I jumped on Alaska Airline, and lo and behold, I guess people hadn't booked as many tickets as they had anticipated, because I bought round-trip tickets for $579.
Nice.
That's not bad.
Good job.
Yeah.
Good job,
So
Dad.
she got home on Thanksgiving and flew home on Monday. And, so everyone was in town. My grandson was there. I couldn't have been happier.
So for me, I sort of did the opposite. This was the first time ever that I did not spend Thanksgiving with my family. Jason has to stay in Utah for his residency, and Justine, Loanne, and Jonah, they stayed home
His
to
residency.
Yes, to take his Utah residency, to keep his Utah residency.
You can't leave the state.
You only have so many days you can leave in a year. So he couldn't leave. He will be able to come home for Christmas. And so don't feel too bad for me, because I had a wonderful opportunity. And,
Oh, we don't.
Yeah. And I want to thank my family for allowing me to go, so to speak. I was able to represent PCA at the Porsche's International Presidents Meeting, where they brought together over 65 countries, over 200 folks, to talk about everything from how to grow your club to what's going on in the future of Porsche. Of course, looking at some hardware that they brought over to Portugal. And it was, as you would think, it's an amazing time, but to see the Porsche content. But it was really cool to see how folks kind of look at PCA and what we're doing. We take it for granted oftentimes that we have a lot of opportunities to do fun things and have lots of events in the U.S., and we have such a strong volunteer base in PCA that that doesn't exist in every other Porsche club. And guess what, Manny? We even had some PCA Insider fans. I don't know if we got a photo there. So shout out to Carrie Mason from Porsche Club Great Britain and San Lei from Porsche Club of Vietnam. And the youngest Porsche club that was there was the Porsche Club of Honduras. And it was really cool, really cool. Yeah. And we had a workshop in PCA. Our national president Aaron Ambrosino and vice president Ron Gordon presented and shared with all these different Porsche clubs sort of how we do things, and gave them tips on things that maybe they could take away from PCA and apply it to their clubs, such as the Porsche PCA Juniors program, things that we do with social media.
Was the Swedish Porsche Club there?
The Swedish Porsche Club.
Did you see the email we got for? We've been getting a lot of emails, obviously, for the stickers.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Bark from Sweden, Porsche Club Sweden. Listener, he said he's a member of the Porsche Club Sweden. I thought, I wonder. I'm sure they had to have been at the
I can tell you, I brought a lot of swag for the seminar. So PCA Insider decals, PCA lanyards, and not a single thing was left on the table. So we definitely had some fans.
Where did you say this one took place this year?
It was in Portugal.
Yeah.
Nice.
So remember to send the email to podcast@pca.org.
Yes, podcast@pca.org.
Charlotte, our
the
manager of member services, and I believe Megan is doing the mailing. They will get the stickers out to you. They told me, Megan told me she's blown away by how many people, different countries are sending them out internationally. So.
Yep, and we'll as we continue to have them and we can, we'll certainly just keep shipping them out. So one of the things I learned, I don't know, maybe you guys have talked about this before, but they talked about the 2025 sort of long-term strategy of Porsche. And do you know all the 3 platforms that are going to be the cars for the future?
I should.
Yeah.
If you want me to take a guess and maybe be wrong, let's see. It'll be the next Boxster EV platform. The 983, I want to say,
Yeah.
but I could be wrong.
It's 983.
It's 983. Then we have PPE, which would be Taycan, wouldn't it? Or it's JL1.
All right, I'll help you out, make it easier for you.
Okay.
So you mentioned the Porsche sports car platform, which
Yep.
will be the Cayman Boxster, the scalable systems platform Sport, which would be the Panamera Taycan, and then the premium platform electric, which is the Macan.
PPE,
and-
that's what I was
that'll be
thinking,
the
yeah.
future Macan and Cayenne. And
That's
new-
all electric.
All these are all electric, and then there's the 1-2-door that will be, hybrid. Motor and hybrid would be the 911.
Is that based on the 983 platform?
It's on its own platform.
I would think, yeah. I think
So
It's on its own
Well,
platform.
we'll know it. It's a 992.2.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, it's still a 992.
Yeah.
But there'll still be a. I think the lowest model is going to be the gas only, but everything higher. The last rumor I heard was the RS,
Yeah.
GT2 RS would come in as a hybrid.
Yeah.
And this was the first time I saw something official on a slide being presented to us as part of the scalable systems platform. Sport will be a top-tier SUV that is, I think, 7-passenger, at least 3
Yeah.
rows.
That
We've been
little
hearing about that.
that little outline that says new, but no picture of the car.
I didn't post it on YouTube because I'm not sure I'm supposed to share it, but they didn't say it was confidential either. So
Yeah.
anyway,
I
that's
feel like
pretty
all
cool.
this information's been floating around
Yeah.
for quite some time.
Yeah, so lots of cool stuff there. Anyways, Nathan, thank you for joining us today, and not only being here, but yesterday, as we're recording this on a Wednesday, we dropped what we think is our holiday present to PCA members and Porsche enthusiasts. So I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun last night to roll out our new video on the 993. As you know, I'm very passionate about these cars, and so it's fun for me to make these videos where essentially I get to get out of my own head. All this ridiculous information lives inside of here somewhere, and to be able to put it out there, maybe it's a little bit like therapy for me. Talk about all the changes with the 993. What to look for, and we talk about a lot of the hotbed topics, the wide body versus narrow body, 2-wheel drive versus 4-wheel drive, and so on and so forth. So a ton of fun, almost 2 hours in length. So I'm going to apologize ahead of time for your spouse or significant other. If you're as nerdy as me, this would be excruciatingly painful to watch if you did not like cars.
Yeah. Well, the fact that you went on for 2 hours, we film things here at PCA and such, and to create a 15-minute video, we know the hours that goes into it behind the scenes. So with a 2-hour video, how much time did you spend putting that together?
I have to give a huge shout out to my videographer. That's Mike Johnson. He does a fabulous job as a good friend of mine and very talented guy. And he does all the heavy lifting. So, of course, I get all the credit because I'm the not-so-good-looking face behind the camera. But he actually does the bulk of the heavy lifting in terms of all the video editing and all that work that's behind the scenes. But in terms of actually shooting this video, believe it or not, I do these almost as complete one takes. So this video, I think we only broke it up into 4 sections. And the only 4 sections we really broke them up is when we actually had to, reposition the cars or reposition sort of the camera, if you will. So there's obviously a break, for example, when you see my car on the ground and the next thing you know, it's on the lift. Obviously, we took a break to move the cars. But for the most part, I just prattle on about the cars and he records. So it's actually pretty efficient. I think our total video time to create this was under 3 hours. I shudder to think how many hours of editing he had, but actual creation time, pretty short.
So there are people who, I can't remember who's exactly has asked, but people have asked, how does he do that? How much preparation, and et cetera, et cetera. And, for most knowledgeable people, it would still take, of course, it probably takes some time to gather the cars, but just to prepare what you're going to say, even a knowledgeable person, it might take a bit of time, a day to outline and all that. But I was pretty sure that you have all, if not most of this on the top of your head, and that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, I guess good, bad, or indifferent. Like I said, all this information lives in my head, and sometimes I need like a pressure relief valve that kind of pushes it all out into the world. Whether that's interesting for other people to hear or not, we'll only find out. But I don't write a script. I mean, I have a general concept of what I want to talk about. And so that's why sometimes if you watch my video closely, you can find an error here or there, or you can find where some people say, oh my gosh, you didn't cover, the bolt torque or the finish on this fastener. And I'm like, okay, now we're getting a little too deep. But I try to cover the most important things that, are commonly asked about these cars. I'm somewhat blessed in that I own these cars. I've owned them for many years, and I also get to work and touch on these cars on a daily basis. So it's kind of what I do. So I'm pretty familiar with what the common issues are. Most people, when they talk about a given car, maybe the only experience with it is the one that they own. So I have the advantage of owning them for a long time, but also literally, dozens of these cars go through my hands each year. So pretty broad-based experience.
These examples, Nathan, did you prep these cars before the video, or were these already prepared, so to speak, for the video?
It's sort of a little bit of a mix. So the yellow car in the video is my personal 993. That car I've owned for quite a while. And that car, I hate to admit, doesn't get a lot of use. So I kind of pulled it out of the corner, and I didn't really prep anything on that car for the video. I just knew it would be a good example. So that car was easy. The Zenith Blue C4S, a good friend and client of mine, he just purchased that car from our friends in Germany. And beautiful car. And so when I saw that car, I said, hey, let's feature that car because it's got some unique options, unique color. So that's where that car come from. Shout out to Brooks for bringing that car over. And I didn't do anything to the car. He brought it to me in that condition, which is wonderful. The Vesuvio car belongs to my dear friend Marv Engstrom, who's the gentleman that helped me film the door check strap video.
Yeah, Marv.
So that is his personal 993. Beautiful car. He is a craftsman extraordinaire. He is my go-to body and paint guy. And the level of work and detail, some of the things that I know about these cars, I always have to give credit where credit is due. And anything I know about body, paint, texture, finish, how things are assembled, Marv is my go-to resource. He knows exactly. For example, we spent some time talking about the overspray pattern on the bottom of the car. Well, of course, most people don't care two bits about that, but him and I care about that stuff. And so when we're working with cars or repairing cars, we obsess that they look exactly like they did when they left the factory. He knows that information. So that's his car. And then the red car in the video belongs to a friend of mine, Michael Robinson. And believe it or not, that is my old 993. So that was my 993, probably until 2014, maybe something like that. And that was when I was really heavily in this mindset of changing and modifying every car. And so what was fun about that car is I call it the Renlist Top 20. I was real active on Renlist in that period. And I wanted to I'm a firm believer before I tell someone, hey, I think this is a good improvement or not a good improvement, I should try it. So that was kind of my test bed car. So that car probably had, 40 or 50 different changes over its lifetime, some of which are still on the car, some of which are now.
So which ones were the ones you didn't like?
Ooh, that's a good one. I try not to throw anyone under the bus. I mean,
you don't have to say name brands, but just
a couple of the ones that come up. A lot of people, for example, one of the deficiencies in the 993 is the headlights, and it's predominantly because in the mid 90s when they went to that layback style fender, reflector technology was not what it is today. And so to me, it's a poor reflector design. And so light output on a 993 is subpar. If you take for example, anything earlier than that and you upgrade to an H4 or an H1 lens, it'll radically outperform the 993 headlight. And a lot of people have attempted to do retrofit kits for HID or Lightronics, things like that. And what I've learned, having tried multiple kits, is it seems brighter or the light is whiter, but ultimately the beam pattern is still subpar. So that would be something that I'm not a big fan of. Recently, a couple companies have dropped a completely new reflector and housing assembly. And I'll be interested to try those out, although I'm such a purist, I don't care for the aesthetics of them. But I would be interested to see if the light pattern is better. I do a lot of driving at night and at early morning, and so I find my 993 to be quite deficient in that regard compared to some of my earlier 911s. So that's something I'm probably not a big fan of. I've tried several of the upgraded shift type items, short shift kits and so on. And I guess I'm turning into a curmudgeon. I think there's somewhat of a reason that Porsche has a bit of a longer throw than some of the other manufacturers. And what I find with the short shift kits is sometimes we think, oh, it feels tighter, but ultimately it's higher effort. And so
Agreed.
I kind of like
Me too.
You nailed it.
Yep.
the lighter effort of the longer throw. And so I'm kind of back to being original, I guess.
It killed me when I hear people just picked up the car and they're like, yeah, I'm sending it to the shop next week to get a short shift kit. And I'll ask them, well, what don't you like about this kit, shifting right now? And they're like, well, it's the short shift kit. It's better. I'm like, have you tried it on any other car? They're like, no. I'm like, I would really try it because I've yet to find a short shift kit that I liked. It was just, I always tell people when I raced, I had a regular shifter on my 964. I never changed the shifter. The feel was perfect, and I didn't have any effect on the performance whatsoever. So, yeah, it's...
I've
In
had
fact, one of the
I've had the
I was going to say, one of the funny things about the 964, if you look at a 964 RS, it actually comes from the factory with a longer shift lever.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think the best shifting 964 you'll ever drive is a 964 RS, the Euro version. And if you notice, the actual shift lever is taller and slightly about 15 millimeters cantilever to the left, closer to the driver. And it's a subtle thing, but it's not shorter. It's in fact longer, and they
And I
shift
think they use
so
the same amount of leather because it looks actually like it's stretched out more than the stock one. That's how you can tell the RS. It's just like Nathan says, it sticks up a little taller.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced some. Like my 996, when I bought it, it came with an aftermarket shifter that was just so short and so notchy. It was terrible.
Oh, I remember that.
You remember that?
Oh, I hated that.
And
I could never find
and
the
then
gears.
and then the opposite is my Loan's 986 Boxster. Its original shifter was like so far, like it felt like I almost hit the radio in first gear and then all the way to the back of the seat in second gear. So what I've done in my cars is I really like the 997 GT3 shifter, the OEM shifter, and I think it's a nice balance between being, too short and too high level of an effort, but then also not being so far as long as like a Mack truck. So
Yeah. Did Porsche make a short shifter for the 993? Is that an option?
From the factory, no.
No, not from the factory.
So I'm not one of those people that says the engineers are absolutely flawless at Porsche, but they are darn good. And
Yep.
so generally, if they don't offer something, there's a reason. It's not as if they didn't have the concept that, oh, geez, people might like a shorter shift throw. They certainly offered shorter shift throws on previous generation cars, but they did not on the 993, the standard versions. Again, the 993 RS has slightly different linkage than the regular 993.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think the sort of the design and the feel of the car. I drove that black 993 Turbo, and driving modern cars, you kind of get used to and have this expectation, and you drive something like that, and you're just like, whoa, that's so far. But then that's sort of the flair, the characteristic of the car, and then when you drive someone else that's modified it so short, it feels weird to have such a short shifter, like an S2000 like shifter in a 993. And it's just like, it doesn't follow with the personality of the car.
Yeah.
No. So many of people that have watched this are, of course, amazed by your knowledge on 993. But the question is, can you do this with other models, or how many other models can you go 2 hours?
Maybe it's easier to ask him which models he couldn't do this.
Yeah, that's true. Is there one that you couldn't do?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm generally would admit to being a little bit of a lightweight on cars that I have never owned. So I would certainly struggle to do this on the Taycan.
Ah, okay, yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with the Taycan, it just doesn't particularly grab me, so I haven't wanted to own one. So I haven't done a deep dive on a Taycan, nor have I even sold one yet. So I would struggle with that car. Ooh, what else would I struggle
So I know
with?
you are a somewhat recent owner of a 928, but I don't think you were a 928 owner before, what, a couple years ago, a year and a half?
Yeah, I've owned my 928 now, I think going on 3 years.
3 years. Oh, it's been
And
a while.
prior to
flies.
that, I probably would not have done the 928 series because, and I've said this publicly many times, I was kind of an avowed non-928 person, and I'm reformed. I've come into my own. Some people would say they found Jesus. Well, I found 928, and it took me a while. I was kind of resistant.
What year's
And
yours?
it's a 79.
79, right?
And a good friend of mine, his name's Leif Johnson, was a factory-trained 928 guy back in period, and he's long espoused the value of the early 928. And I dismissed him as a crazy crank. And so one day he had an early car in his shop, and he asked me to come down and drive the car. And I thought, fine, he's a good friend. I'll assuage him, and then I'll tell him that it's just not for me. And I drove the car, and the angels sang. I drove that car. I literally had tears of joy.
Really?
And I thought, oh my God, now I'm going to have to buy another car. And so then I went on a big hunt to find an original manual, interesting 78 or 79. And that's what I did. And I've turned
How
in one of
is
those
it?
crazy 928 people. It is
Oh.
glorious.
So there's a lot of 928s that you see available for sale, but finding one that it's a manual in those years and in Nathan Merz condition has got to be hard.
Well, I will say, manual 928s, the early 928s, there were more manuals made, so it's probably easier to find a manual in the early cars, right?
I don't know, Nathan.
Yeah, absolutely. Early production was about 75% of the cars were manual transmission. As they age, the prevalence of the automatic transmission increases significantly. But yeah, the 78 and 79 cars, the vast majority of them are manuals, and the vast majority of them do not have sunroofs. The sunroof did not appear until 79. It wasn't chosen that often. So, my big criteria was I wanted an all original car. I wanted original paint. I wanted an original radio. I wanted no modifications of any kind because I wanted to really understand what this car would have felt like when it came out. And so those were my major criteria. And then I also wanted an interesting color. A lot of them came in black, or I wasn't particularly find Mocha Schwartz as an example particularly compelling to me. So I wanted, apple green or hellblau or petrol blue,
So what
something
color's
like that. Mine is hellblau.
yours?
I really wanted Pasha interior.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Mine has the just black leather, which is fine, but
So boring.
Come on.
yeah,
Jeez.
geez, Manny. This is 2023. We don't shame people anymore. You're showing your age.
And we doing this show.
Yeah. No, but it's a glorious car, and it brings me a lot of joy. And funny enough, I drive my 928 probably, I would say it's my number one most driven Porsche of all the cars that I own.
Really?
That's
Wow.
quite a vote of confidence.
What surprised me this year, we're parking the cars at the PCA open house, and a 928 came, early 928, and he parked between two 991s or two 992s. It looked so tiny. It's like those pictures if you see early 911s next to like big trucks, and it looks like a toy car. That's what this 928 looked like. Everyone was staring at it going, wow, that is a very tiny car. And I thought to myself, I remember back in the days when I first joined PCA, 928s were huge.
Yeah.
They were big cars. And now suddenly they become very tiny because 911s have gotten bigger and bigger, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, the thing, too, I always didn't like about the 928. And in my first experience, I worked at a Porsche dealer when I was a teenager. And at that time, we had new 928 S4s on the lot. And I remember driving them. I had a 75 911 at the time. And the car felt just very weighty to me in terms of all its inputs and just its feel. And so I think that was the thing that when I drove the early car that I noticed is it just feels like it weighs 600 pounds less. Now, in all actuality, it doesn't. But it feels light on its feet. And if you think of a pendulum between, say, true sports car and true GT, I would always label that 928 as true GT, whereas I would take the early 928 and I would actually put it slightly pointing towards sports car. It feels that the Porsche DNA is more clearly connected to my true love, which of course is air-cooled 911.
And do the prices in today's market reflect that for a 928?
They finally got some of the appreciation I think that they deserve. And basically with 928s, it seems like the really strong interest is on a few different models. So the 78 and 79s sort of have their fan base. I think partly it's because the original design language, they don't have the rub strips, they don't have the front and rear spoilers, they have the phone dial wheels. They oftentimes come in interesting colors and interesting interiors. And so, yes, those cars, we've seen some record six-figure sales of early 928s. They get fairly soft, in the 80 to 85 range, with exception of if you find a really nice, what we call a twin Dizzy Euro car, which are the twin distributor 310 horsepower models. Those are quite desirable if you can find one of those. There's certainly a group of people that are really excited about the 86.5 car, which of course gets some of the updates of the next car with the S4, but the aesthetics of the earlier car. So that's a nice one. S4s are fairly plentiful, and so they're still fairly soft, particularly in automatics. A nice S4 manual seems to do fairly well. In fact, there's an S4 that I sold right there. It's interesting. Someone pulled it up pretty fast. Nice job, Robert.
Thanks, Robert.
That's Robert.
Actually, one of the cars I would like to add, now that I've become a fan, I'd really like a white 928 GT.
Ooh.
And the reason I want a GT is you don't pay the same premium that you do for a GTS, and I think it's 95% as good. And so if someone out there has a white, my dream would be a white with can red. It probably doesn't exist. A 928 GT.
Straight out of an episode of Miami Vice.
Oh,
The always stuck in my head was, and this was years ago, but Dieter Langenberger, the museum archivist years ago, he works for VW now, but we were looking at 928s at a Concours field, and I said, well, I guess this is the best, the GTS. And he said, no, he says, I would take a GT. And I said, but the GTS is the best. It's, the wider hips and whatnot. And he was like, no, but the GT is the one you want. And that always stuck in my head. He
Did
said,
he explain why?
I think was it more limited production than the GTS?
So if the 928 and keeping track of those later model years is a little tough, but now correct me if I'm wrong, Nathan, but the S4, you could get manual or automatic for a while, and then wasn't it that S4 and the GT were sold side by side, and the S4 was manual, the GT was auto, and then the GTS was sold, and you could get it either transmission?
yeah. I mean, you're pretty close to accurate there. So
Pretty
the
close?
S4 was
Okay.
always offered as either automatic or manual.
Okay.
The GT was only a manual. And yes,
Only
the
a
S4
manual. Okay.
and
That
the
was
GT
8990, was it, or 9091?
Yeah, early 90s, maybe.
89 to 91.
91, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so like I would love an 89 because it gets the non-airbag setup.
Yeah.
That would
So
be
a GT
my
gets the
preference.
manual that you want.
Yeah, you could
in
at
essence.
the same time
Okay.
you could, for example, have a 1990 S4 automatic, but it doesn't get some of the GT improvements, which is a shorter final drive, some
Okay.
performance enhancements, better wheel fitment, that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
So can I put you on the spot here, Nathan? A lot of people steer clear of a 928 because the car was so ahead of its time, and then for years, value of the car and should something happen to those cars, getting them repaired were super expensive. Like, do you have like 5 things people should look out for if they're interested in getting into a 928?
yeah, I think with 928s, it's the same rule I would tell you with any transaxle car, which is spend all your money up front. Buy the absolute best car you can find and overpay up front. Because sadly, as the values of these cars slipped, maintenance slipped, and in a typical German car fashion, even when they're in a terrible state of repair, they'll almost always run, quote, right? Someone will say, oh, it runs. But nothing is right on the car. And so people think, oh, I'll start going through it and I'll make it right. Well, the values are still not high enough you could ever go through one correctly and have any semblance of being right side up in the car. So even my 928 that I found, very, very, very nice car, very well cared for, very well preserved, and I still spent 2x my original entry cost to bring the car up to the standard I was happy with. And I still have plenty of other, little small aesthetic items I could attend to if I wanted to. I have decided to keep my car, firmly in the very nice driver category, not the show car, category. But mechanically, my car is a, 9.9 out of 10. Everything works as it should. But yeah, you have to go into it saying, I'm doing this as a labor of love and less so, being right side up in the car when I'm all done.
Very cool.
The maintenance part is what I tell people about Panameras right now. I said we're in that phase where they're going to be, especially with the pricing of cars coming down now, Panameras are going to be sticking out like a sore thumb as an incredible value to purchase this Porsche that was a lot of times a 6-figure car, and people that buy it may not be able to keep up with the maintenance, and Panameras can be very expensive to maintain. More so than a 911. And so you're going to see a lot of deferred maintenance. You're going to see a lot of backyard maintenance done, and stuff that I've seen on 928s as people that bought them because they were cheap, and then they had to try to maintain them. Where, like Nathan said, bring it up to the standards, which a lot of people don't do. They just get it enough where it's running, and then they leave the other stuff to be. And so, to me, if I was buying a 928, I would the one-owner car would be the dream. Yeah. If it was a 2-owner car, as long as you had the whole history, that would go a long way. It's those 5, 7, 8-owner cars that I wonder what made them sell it. Was it a big maintenance issue that they didn't want to tackle, so they passed it to the next guy? It's a shame, but I hopefully Panameras don't suffer that same fate.
So if you're listening to this on the day that the podcast dropped, this coming Wednesday, we are going to have Nathan on Tech Tactics Live, right, Manny?
Yes.
So gather your questions and post them on the comments area of YouTube, and of course join us during Tech Tactics Live, and we're kind of go. It's almost like an open mic night with Nathan Merz, and you can ask him any questions about your favorite model Porsche. We're also going to be trying this format on Treffin at Sea.
I envision this virtual town hall where people are just waiting in line with a piece of paper to ask Nathan a question, and he's just sitting at the at a table. Because we said it doesn't have to be just for the 993; it can be in any of his model guides. And of course, I'm sure, Nathan, you're going to get the questions of when are you going to come out with a ... model guide?
Yeah, or you're going to get what's the value of my car that has...
Yeah, well, that's a given, yeah. The one I'm excited that I saw in an email thread chain, the 914. The 914, of course, that's the one that I hold near and dear to my heart. I would love to see a Nathan Merz model guide on that.
Oh, boy. Here we go. The request starts rolling in.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's throw up the newsletters. Just want to remind you, if you haven't signed up for eBrake News or Mark Fresh News or Performance News, just head over to pca.org and we'll get you set up. Before we get into the news, I would like to talk about a couple of videos that Damon dropped. One of them was the 981 Cayman, and the second one was the Hot Wheels 944.
So I'll start with the Hot Wheels 944 just because that video came out a little earlier, and it's from Rennsport. We had one of our correspondents who was at Rennsport Union 7 had a hook on the designer of this car, the lead Hot Wheels Matchbox designer. And, I felt, off-road safari car, people might want to know about this. Now, the views might not say that people really want to know about it, but it's got a solid, I think, just under 2,000, and hopefully you guys enjoy seeing what Patrick Long and Hot Wheels have built. I will say you'll notice that the car stalled once in the video. It actually stalled many more times. Yeah. So for those who were commenting about, is it a SEMA build for Rennsport. Well, if you look at it like that, then yes, they wanted to get it looking good for Rennsport, and apparently there's still some more engine tuning to be done. And at some point next year, Patrick Long will be actually driving it off-road, which I was hoping would have been done for this video, but it just didn't work out like that. But very cool car, cool project. If you go on to MattelCreations.com, you should be able to find the car. I wasn't able to, so you might have to look hard, but usually there's something that says sold out on a car that was available, but I just haven't found it yet. But MattelCreations.com is where you should be able to find it.
So here's where I'm going to put a plea out for at least, I want to say 5, maybe even 8 years. We've been trying to connect with Hot Wheels. So, and I think we do get to a rep or something like that, but we would love to do some sort of collaboration, a PCA collaboration with a number of Hot Wheels. And we don't need a particular special model, but we need to do something fun with Hot Wheels. And if anyone,
I have the lead designer's number.
If anyone's listening, please, Hot Wheels, connect with us. We only have 106.
Let's do a Nathan Merz series.
Oh,
Nathan can be standing next to the car in his flip flops. I guarantee it'll be a hit.
Yeah, a little plastic.
There's
Nathan
so
with
many
flip-flops
cool
and a
things
Porsche.
that we could do with Hot Wheels, but we just need to get some traction. So if you guys are listening out there, can help us out, let us know.
Yeah, well, what about Nathan Merz action figure?
Oh, yes.
I think you're going to sell about 3 copies of those. It'll go to my wife and maybe one of my kids.
we still were considering carrying for the holidays Nathan Merz flip-flops to go under your Christmas tree.
Yeah.
And then the Cayman, the 981.
Exactly. So that was a 2015 model. For what you're paying, I think you can get a 981 Cayman. You can find them in the 30s. Maybe not all of them in the $30,000 range are going to be the best, but I think you can find a nice one in the upper 30s and definitely below $50,000 right now. That's a great deal for that car. 275 horsepower, fairly easy to maintain. I'm guessing the 981s haven't changed too much from the 987s. No turbochargers. They're smaller than a 911, and especially with the Porsche factory sport exhaust, they sound amazing. That was a really nice, sweet fluid car to drive. It's my kind of car, PDK, I'd consider it, in something that condition if I didn't already own a Cayman. But yeah, racing yellow, nice interior. Still feels very modern, and it's a great drive. And don't let drive PDK before you make a decision on that, because it's a very good transmission.
And I bet you would have enjoyed that PDK even more if you were lined up at an autocross or if you were on track.
With launch control. Although you need Sport Chrono Package Plus for the launch control, and this one didn't have it. So this is more daily driver spec.
Yeah.
Although I would argue, Damon, I would tell people that the best 2 cars that I think are best with a PDK. 981 base, because that 2.7 liter motor in that car is a little bit torque deficient, and that's really disguised with the PDK because of its quick shifting. Whereas that car in a manual transmission's a little bit frustrating. I owned one for a while. Glorious motor, but you definitely could get caught out. Whereas the PDK sort of masks that. Particularly, it'll drop 3 gears like now. So I think that's actually a better car as a PDK. The other car I really like as a PDK is any of the 997.2 or 991.1 or 2 turbos, but of course that's the only way those ones came other than the early 997.2 turbos. But I think it's a better car as a PDK. I'm not one of those people that say all PDKs are a bad thing. No, there's some cars I think it's a better car as a PDK. And 981 base, better car as a PDK.
Well, that's good to know. Automatic transmissions with low torque or low power motors, or if they're turbo, I feel like automatics and PDKs they mask turbocharging as well. So yeah, there's definitely a place for PDK even in a small lightweight sports car like the 981.
Before people write in and say it's not an automatic, we know it's a dual clutch.
Yes.
It's easier to say automatic than say dual clutch every
well,
time.
it is an automatic. It's a dual clutch automatic, right? So
I call it a Porsche exclusive clutch pedal delete package.
There we go. That'll make people happy.
That's much shorter.
Yeah. So yeah, great car. Highly recommended if you're on a budget and you want something a little more modern. Definitely check out a base 981 Cayman. If you're not just absolutely need horsepower, it's a really, really good car.
And that what they always say, driving a slow car fast, right?
Yeah, and then if you all, as I say, if you have an excuse at the autocross, if you go slow, and then if you go quickly, it's a put it in everybody's face.
It's a win-win. Exactly.
And I guess obviously, if you're listening to this, it's already out. Is the Unstock video?
Yes. Yep.
We don't have it listed here because it doesn't come out till
Saturday.
Yep. But the summary of the Unstock event will be out too.
Yeah, we hope you liked it. If you haven't seen it, go check it out.
Yeah, I gotta say they did a great job with it. The energy and excitement of the event definitely comes through in the video. So I hope you guys enjoy it. In the news, I wanted to start off with what I would consider sad news, but it doesn't surprise me at all. Many of you know I like wagons and touring cars, and I think many enthusiasts do as well, but they don't vote for it with their wallet. And Sport Turismo wagons for Porsche Panameras are no more. Manny, you want to talk a little bit more about that?
You just talked about it.
So what I'll say is, excuse me, I'm one of those people who will be like, build the wagon. Wagons are awesome. Did I buy one?
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't.
No, you didn't. And not a lot of other people.
It did look great. I got to admit it, too. I love the look of the Sport Turismo. I didn't really understand when they called it a 5-seater in the back, because it really, it's a very uncomfortable 5-seater.
But legally, you can put 3 people in the back, whereas
as long as the middle person has no legs or very short legs, because they're still
the earlier ones were just four passenger cars, right?
Yeah, and that's what Panameras are known for. But other than that, the looks were great, and I'm sure now people are going to say, "Oh, I wish they would have kept on making the Sport Turismo. That was the best." And so now everyone that owns one,
should have bought them.
Everyone that owns one, including Dan Zadra, he bought one a few months ago. Beautiful Sport Turismo. Yeah. Now he gets to go to Cars and Coffee and listen to people say, "This is the best Panamera they ever built. They should have never stopped making it."
It's gonna be rare. They don't make them anymore. It's gonna be rare.
Yeah.
Speaking of Panameras, at the International Presence meeting, I don't know if I have the video or some of the photos I took of the new Panamera, and Damon, you wrote up quite some details on it.
Yeah, definitely. So the new Panamera, you won't mistake it for being anything else. They kept the same basic design, 4-point headlights, a similar grille shape, but with some changes, and even the rear looks very similar to the second gen. But you will notice they have it's shaped slightly different on the front fascia. That there are also bigger air intake grill openings, and you'll also notice a sort of a thin slit above the license plate that is also to help stuff more air into the slightly more powerful engines.
That's a sport design package on it right now that we're looking at?
I don't know off the top of my head. That's a turbo e-hybrid. I believe that probably comes with a whatever sport design or some sort of, but I don't think that's the package necessarily. Yep. And getting to the active suspension management, that is probably the biggest thing they've changed on the car that you wouldn't be able to see unless you're holding a phone, you're connected to it, and it's an e-hybrid model, and you tilt the phone. And if you check out our social media...
But that was just for demonstration. That's not for the public use, right?
Yeah, you'll be able to do that, I'm pretty sure.
No, I read that.
So?
No, I read that was just for demonstration.
Oh, okay, so it's demonstrating what it can do.
Porsche was...
Right.
Because can you imagine? Because that's why I read somebody said, don't flip the phone over because we haven't tested what happens.
Boom. So basically what that demonstration is showing is that in a certain mode... Porsche has developed a suspension for the e-hybrid models, taking advantage of their more electrical power with the hybrid battery, and so on, to use single-chamber air suspension. So they go back from the 2-chamber that they're touting on the non-hybrid models. They bring it back to a single-chamber, but then they use the electrical system to operate 4 hydraulic pumps, which allows you to, just like a lowrider, the car can lean into the corners.
Eliminates body roll. That's what they're doing.
So it's not just eliminating. Porsche said in their press release that if you put it into a certain mode, it will, when you're accelerating, it'll tilt forward to keep it flat. So the car will tilt forward. You'll feel like you're flat. It'll lean into corners, and it'll tilt backwards when you're braking. So it's not even just quelling or reducing body roll. This thing might not have any body roll at all.
That's crazy.
So
all I gotta say
new
is the
engines
video
and-
that Bogdan created on social media. If you haven't seen that, they should have a little disclaimer. It almost looks R-rated.
Well,
Yeah, I think
all you
the
got to do is
music
read the
is,
comments, and
yeah.
you can change that R rating into an X rating.
Yeah, that's that was
yeah. Thank you, Rob, for getting that video. That was
that's past well over 1 million.
yeah,
views.
more over 1 million. See, we're trying to get views here on YouTube with the Hot Wheels 944, but you post the Panamera doing the dirty,
Yeah.
and so, but yes, new engines, a little more horsepower, new styling, and if you get an e-hybrid model, a pretty trick suspension system. Those are the main things.
The next news item also has to do with a Panamera, but this one is the Sonderwunsch debut in Shanghai.
You know, I couldn't find a post or reply. Boris had replied to someone, and I thought he said that does the exclusive not go all the way to the Panamera?
What do you mean?
Yeah, because they put on there what, and I don't want to misquote him, but he had a listing on his response about what's covered under not Sonderwunsch, because I think Sonderwunsch covers everything.
Exclusive manufacturer?
Maybe the exclusive department. I'm gonna find this posting. I was trying to look at it before the show started. What his reply was. It surprised me as to the Panamera was never included in this lineup, but it is for this Sonderwunsch that they did a special edition model of the Panamera. I think it's the first time they've done it.
So,
with the,
so can I make a comment? Because I really had to put my nose to the screen. Like I know
think I know what
they
you're gonna
talked
say.
about how this car is a two-tone vehicle, but the way they took the photos and the colors that they chose, like it's hard to tell it's a two-tone color. Like I kind of get
see.
like it's more of a, remember like the Bugattis of the day where the center was a little bit different than the rest of the car. But did you guys see the two-tone before you read it?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I was a little too focused on trying to figure out why the rear end looks a little less handsome than the previous generation.
I mean, you can
In
see
my
it here,
opinion.
right? I mean, at least
Yeah,
I can
you
see
can,
it.
now you can see it. Yeah,
to
look
me,
at that.
when I on that side shot, I like you could mistaken that's like a reflection.
Yeah, I was gonna say reflection is
because
what
it
I was
just wasn't
thinking.
like that much of a contrast. I'm sure it's
It's not as good
striking in
looking
person.
as the two-tone 993, but
Two-tone 993. What two-tone?
Nathan, educate your friend here about the two-tone 993.
Are
Did
you
I
talking
miss
about the
that one?
Vesuvio car?
Yes, the Vesuvio car.
Yeah, I'm going to argue with you there, Manny. I don't know if it's two-tone.
Oh, 'cause
has
it
an
is
accent
two-tone.
color.
on the
No,
mirrors
no,
and the
no,
grill.
It is
no.
two-tone. There's two colors on that Porsche
Okay,
painted
but
it.
not two-tone in the sense where it's like old school, like the top is different from the side.
The mirrors, the wing,
Yeah.
the wheels.
From this angle, if you're watching on YouTube, that looks two-tone. Because it's,
Oh
it's
yeah,
not
you
in-
can't.
it's not
I mean,
in
there's
direct light.
there's defined there. You can tell.
I
it's
don't know.
two-tone.
I mean, some could argue the way the photographer took it, it may be a reflection of something. Like I just didn't think it was like that obvious, but maybe it's not supposed to be that obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
well, one
way it
thing that'll be
drops
interesting is obviously this is designed for a different buyer demographic, and so it'll be interesting how well that sells in a different market than, for example, in the U.S. domestic market or the European market. Because I certainly wouldn't be traveling to Shanghai to buy that car, but it may be a hot seller because of different, buyer demographic. So it'll be interesting to see how it does for them.
I believe they came out with a couple new colors with the Panamera too, to the
yeah.
palette of Porsche colors too.
I'm not aware of that actually, and maybe I should have read the press release a little bit closer.
That surprises
any
me
good
because
colors?
Porsche doesn't care about color. I mean, color's never a thing with Porsche, is it?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
We don't,
Yeah.
no one
They
gets
didn't
spun up
care about it a
apparently.
lot
do
because
now,
there's a
right?
lot of profit margin in the PTS.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. I think in our Chesapeake chat, they were talking about the different colors when it came out, and I'm pretty sure there was like 2, 3, maybe 4 new colors that were introduced with this,
And then we have the new Rainbow.
which they're not listed there yet. They will be shortly.
Yes. Let's move into events. We were pretty disappointed that we couldn't host Tech Tactics West this fall, but we are heading into the next year, and we've got Tech Tactics East planned, which will be February 24th and February 25th. Registration opens January 17th, so make sure you stay tuned to PCA's e-brake news, or make sure you just check on Motorsports Reg for when you need to sign up. Let's see what else we got.
That's actually, do we have it on there? I thought I put on there the registration date.
On January 17th.
January
for Tech
17th,
Yep.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And what's this event that March 1st? Oh, is that for Works Reunion?
It's this thing called Works Reunion. We did out in Florida.
I know,
we
but
should
you
come
didn't,
down
you,
to it.
you didn't write up that it was Works Reunion.
What else do we do in March?
We do a lot of things.
You
and
do
actually,
a lot of things.
That's what was interesting is when we were at the International Presence meeting, they're like, how do you, like, you guys are doing so many events. Like, how do you keep up with it? And, well, there you go. Sometimes we don't.
Yeah,
we forget.
barely.
But, yeah, March 1st will be Works Reunion Amelia Island. Would love to see you there. We're at the Amelia River Club.
Do you know what the
Registration opens December 20th.
Do we know what the featured car is yet?
The featured car, I believe, is the 911 Carrera RS.
Okay.
Any of them or 73?
73 RS. Mm-hmm. And then let
That's
me
a
see.
pretty high-stake poker game there.
I know. All right, exactly. And then we have Treffen Wine Country, which I'm sure will sell out, just the locale. The event is April 21st through the 25th.
Now, you don't need a Porsche to do the tours on this, right?
Nope. Many of people actually come.
So you
to
can fly from the East Coast if you want to and
Yep.
use a rental car.
And this is not just any wine country. This is like original U.S., right? Napa,
Sonoma, Napa,
sort
yep.
of?
Mhm.
Okay, nice.
And registration for it opens January 10th.
I hadn't thought about that. So we could just do like the local highway down in Baltimore and call that wine country.
Yeah, we could, couldn't we? well, now, like in Southern California, Temecula is a wine country.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Temecula is not what you thought of wine country in the early 2000s.
See, I just assumed Northern California. I didn't realize.
Just like commuters are getting pushed out of the Bay Area. They gotta.
But anyways, if you are on the East Coast and you're like, oh, I would love to have a Porsche down there,
Yep.
you can use a rental car. Now, with that said, I would highly look at like Toro or one of the rental car agencies because it's a lot more fun to do it in a Porsche.
Porsche's Drive program that you can rent the car for a week.
Yep, there's a lot of places you can rent a Porsche from.
So this morning, going out to the car, it was 26 degrees, and many people start putting their cars away. If you live in a warmer climate, congratulations to you because you can enjoy the car all year long. But some of us have to put cars away. So if you're looking to drive enthusiastically, but you don't have the availability of taking your car out of the garage, you might want to check out PCA Sim Racing. We offer introductory videos of how to get set up. There's lots of racers, I think 750 some racers, and there's all different levels. We have from, true like racing like you would in club race, but you also have EDE programs where people take newbies and kind of hold their hands as they get used to driving on a simulator. So check that out.
Answer me this question based on a photo I'm looking at. Why does he have a virtual goggles on his head, but a screen in front of him? How does that work?
Yeah, you could start the simulation up with your goggles on, but honestly, it's just easier.
It's easier to use your monitor.
And also, people can watch, right?
Well, yeah, people can watch. You can kind of set up and start in all your settings, but when you drive, you put your goggles on so you feel like you're inside the car.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's pretty advanced. It's pretty cool. All right. Let's see. Anything else before we sign off, folks?
I want to give a shout out to the Baltimore County police officer on 695 on Saturday morning who surprised me coming up behind me.
Yeah.
It was nice enough to not pull me over.
Not pull you
I
over?
was going kind of fast, going to Cars and Coffee, and I could see this white Tahoe keeping up with me, and I didn't think anything of it, because we're just going with the flow of traffic.
Were you in the 964?
No, I was in the Boxster.
Okay.
And it was time to move over to take the next interstate to go to Cars and Coffee. So as I moved over, I could see him speeding up, and I figured, well, I guess he, because I was slowing down to make the turn up to 83.
Did he let you up?
Well, he must have not expected me to slow down that much because he went right by me at first, and then he hit his brakes, and we were almost side by side. But I couldn't see his face because I'm so much lower in a Boxer, and he was in a Tahoe. But it was about 2 seconds. Nice understanding.
So how fast were you going, Manny?
I cannot say that publicly.
Manny's got a heavy right foot.
But enough to where I was surprised. He
Oh
came
my
out of
gosh.
nowhere. So thank you if you're listening or you're friends with this person, because he was very cool. And I wasn't going in and out of traffic. Maybe that's why he didn't do anything, because I
You were
was
just driving at a high rate of speed.
cruising along in the left lane and did not ruin my cars and coffee.
All right. Well, folks, thanks for listening. If you aren't currently a PCA member and own a Porsche, grab that VIN and head over to PCA.org and we'll set you up. If you're looking for your Porsche, check out PCA's test drive program. Again, head over to PCA.org and we can open up some resources to help you find that special Porsche to put on your driveway. Remember to follow our podcast Instagram page to see behind the scenes photos and videos. Porsche Club Insider, all one word. You can send us a message at podcast@pca.org. That's where you also send your requests for the decals. We love it when you comment, give us a like, and of course, please subscribe on our YouTube channel. Stay in touch with all things PCA. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll catch you down the road. Thank you, Nathan.